Right, 40 minutes past 8. Alan Quinlan is with us this morning. Alan, another win for Ireland, and we're being picky, as we should be, I suppose. We, best team in the world. So you got to pick the nits from a performance like that. But all in all, I think Andy Farrell's going to be absolutely delighted.
Yeah, he is. I think obviously you could look at it. It been really scary there, probably around in the mid 60s. I think it was 63rd or 4th minute, where Ross Byrne has to kick a penalty to stretch it out to 7. It was 24-20. But overall, what didn't surprise me in any way that the Italians played the way they played. I said it last week, and it wasn't just kind of giving it lip service. I think they're improved dramatically. I think their attack is so much better. Some very dangerous players, and even their back row is there's a great balance to that, and they're 3 brilliant players: Canone, Negri and Lamaro, the captain. So they have a good side, and a skillful side as well. So, and they proved that it wasn't a fluke. The evidence is there with them beating Wales last year, beating Australia in November. The performance against France in the first game. So it's not as if this has just been a fluke. We've seen this coming a little bit.
And they came back from an early try from us as well. There wasn't a sense, that's it, it's game over. Whereas in previous years, we would have scored to try that early and this game is going to...
You kick on a little bit, and it's always a tougher game. It always has been, because you're expected to win handsomely, and if you don't, then it's seen as disappointing. I think people realise that this is different, and that they're a very attack-minded side. They don't just bring the kind of passion and gusto and all that stuff. They now can attack, and you saw the way they were moving the ball in their back line, and Garbisi being back helped them as well. So I think bar the period when it was 24-20, and then even when it was 27-20, they had a brilliant chance in the 68th minute if they put it through the hands. Ignacio Brex did this crazy crossfield kick.
Yeah. Didn't make any sense.
Yeah. The second row, Rutza, if it bounces up and he scores, well, then it's fine. But he was fuming that it wasn't put through the hands. They had Ireland stretched there a little bit. So I think when Andy Farrell looks back, very much relieved and happy. I think when Mac Hansen scores a try near to give him a bit of comfort, I think they're able to relax a small bit. But I didn't sense any sort of panic in the Irish side either when it was quite close, which was a good sign. And realistically, I think when Bruno gets the intercept just before half-time, that gives them a real kind of sense of this is different now. And they get in at half-time and they're only a score behind. So a couple of things obviously Ireland would look at and would be like to be much better at. They missed 24 tackles. But there's a number of players missing. You're 9, 10, 12, 13 are 4 guys that are...
Turns out they're important.
Yeah, the ones that are not there are very important, but that's valuable experience for them. And maybe the Gary Ringrose situation, he's now become very dependable, particularly defensively.
Yeah. What's the depth chart now, like in Andy Farrell's head? Because we haven't had a look at Osborne. This might have been an opportunity for them. They sent him away. Hume's form it appears nowhere near the Ireland selection, where there was a clamour to get him into the team, and then injury robbed him of an opportunity. And
the injury for James Hume last summer didn't help, and it took him a bit of time to come back. Then Ulster, his team are struggling, so you can't rule James Hume out from being a contender to be a 13. Bundy Aki has very little rugby played, and that showed a little bit on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you can't, I know what this is like. Sometimes it's really difficult when you're out. The more matches you play, the sharper everything becomes. And then, because you're moved out to a 13 slot, which is so much more difficult to defend there, he looked like he was blowing at times, and that's fully understandable. Even though then you give Bundy Aki with the ball, comes up with some big moments and some really great carries, and for the James Ryan try, he makes that really, you know what I mean? Hugo Keenan's he's involved as well with the pass, lovely pass to Van der Fleer. So, there's a few issues there that need to be addressed, and again, it's a great learning curve that they can look at. Anton Frisch, and I've said this, is probably the most like for like at the moment. But he hasn't been in the setup and the system, so maybe it's too late now. I don't know.
You'd certainly be calling
you
him
couldn't say it's too late that a guy can come into it. He's a very good player, Anton Frisch.
Yeah. You'd be calling him into all the squads from now on to see.
Well, I would think so, yeah. Well, I think they're very much aware. He was on that Emerging Ireland tour. But I tell you, if you watch Anton Frisch playing for Munster and even in Europe, superb player, some unbelievable moments. And he's very much like Ringrose in the way he runs and the evasion and the pace that he has. He's a very physical player as well. Robbie Henshaw can play 13 for sure, and he would be a better 13 than Bundy. Bundy is a outstanding 12, who had to play in that position.
I was just looking it up there. Sorry, Ulster had Luke Marshall at 13 in their win against Sharks. So I don't know if he was injured at the moment again, but he wasn't.
I think he is injured again, James Hume.
Does Aki need to sort out whatever the situation at Connacht is between now and the end of the season, or does it matter because they'll have 3 warm-up games before the World Cup?
I would imagine so, Nathan. I think for everyone's interests, I think whatever situation that was there, disagreement or misunderstanding, or if maybe there was none, maybe it was just a foreign thing or whatever, you would like to, I'm sure Connacht fans would like to have it put to bed and get some sort of a feel about what the plan is going forward, because he is a brilliant player. He's a game changer at the top level when he's fit, healthy and well.
They obviously love him.
We're very lucky to have him.
They obviously love him because they put him in the squad and on the team, on the bench, even when he wasn't playing for Connacht. So they've obviously made that work.
Yeah, and you make a point about Jamie Osborne. I think Andy Farrell's problem here was Bundyaki needing game time and Stuart McCluskey getting a kind of a deserving shot or run at playing on the top team in these big games. He got it in November and got injured in the first one. So that's probably what went against Jamie Osborne. But you don't have to play for Ireland to suddenly go and play at a World Cup. There's certain guys that might just go into the team at the World Cup. Ideally, you would like that experience, but it's not a necessity that you have had to have played. If you're a very good player and you've been involved in squads, I think the transition is easier. So I don't know if Anton Frisch was up training with Ireland or one of the players called in to train. I didn't hear that he was, but right. I would imagine he will be over the summer period on an extended squad because he's too good a player not to look at him anyway. And I know, France have been trying to get him to go back.
Yeah.
But Gary, it just goes to show how important and how much of a player Gary Ringrose is, how good he is.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly difficult position, and Dricko always said that. I'm sure you'll ask him later in the week. It's probably one of the hardest positions. Ask Dennis Leamy about it. He was moved at one stage, around 2005-06 season. Around that time, we had Axel, myself and Jim Williams in the back row, and then you had Dennis Leamy and David Wallace, and you're thinking, how do I get Dennis Leamy and David Wallace on the field as well? Well, we put Wally on the wing and we put Leamy as a 13. And that happened in a few games, and
in the middle of a game, or like
no, they started league games. Yeah,
hey, right.
Yeah, Wally was on the wing at one stage, and it was he was so fast, but like there's more to it than just being fast. Dennis Leamy, I remember being a 13, and I can't remember who we played. Maybe it was the Scarlets down in Cork, and just going, someone ran this hard line, and Dennis was kind of like, what's after happening here? And I remember talking to him after the game, and he's going, Jesus, I'm no more of that spot. It's, you don't know where fellas are coming at, whether they go in, out, go straight up, hard on someone. So it's a very difficult position to train, to defend. And, obviously Gary Ringrose does it brilliantly, and he's grown so much and he's so consistent.
It is funny how in games like this where someone isn't there, you miss them more. There's been a mixed response to Casey and Byrne. What's your assessment? 48
Very
hours
valuable for them, and it was a little bit disjointed at times and chaotic, and then Italy were good. So I think they played well, but not brilliant. They didn't have this situation where everybody's going, wow, what a performance. But I think they both played well and be very valuable for them. Rossbourne, a few weeks ago, we were all talking about how brilliant it was that he can come on for 30 minutes and do really well in a big situation against France when it was a crucial period of the game and stuff. So they both did well. I would like to see Ross Byrne's kicking game out of hand. Going for, like, at one stage for the Italian try, the first one, I think it was a poor clearance from Ross Byrne out of his own 22. Got no distance on the ball for a big fella, and it was an end over end kick. Italy launched an attack and eventually a score in the corner. So James Lowe is a great asset to have because he can go at that massive distance down the field. And essentially in a World Cup, it's cup rugby sometimes, and to have that ability to kick really, really long, like Ben Healy, like his ability to just spiral it from 122 to the other and find grass. And I think so Ross Byrne did well. I think there's obviously still the zip and the way Sexton can attack the line is still at a different level.
That's the thing, isn't it? That like if our benchmark is Sexton, we're never going to get to the benchmark. What we need is somebody who is 7/10 of Sexton, but consistent the whole way through. And it's the same with Casey. Is that like
he's a different player, Ross Byrne. The one that can do potentially the Sexton stuff is Crowley, because he's more of a runner than Ross Byrne. That's not... Ross Byrne's strengths are different, and he's very much composed, and he's a very talented out half, and he does brilliantly with Leinster with pace and tempo. But if you're nitpicking, Crowley is the one. But then is Crowley as composed in the game when your forwards are doing well, and you kind of give that armchair right to your halfbacks.
We don't know yet, do we?
Yeah, we don't know. So it was a bit disjointed the other day. And if you were to rate all the Irish players, you're kind of giving them 6, 7s. You're kind of hard to go 8, 9s. You know what I mean?
You're not giving them a 5. Casey got a 5, and Ross Byrne got a 6 from the Irish Times.
Is there anyone?
It's harsh, I think. I think it's harsh, I would say.
Was there anyone then looking ahead to Scotland that really put their hand up for
Well,
Andy
the one
Farrell?
that stands out for me, without thinking about it too much, is Ryan Baird off the bench. I just think this guy's an incredible athlete. And I think with pace and tempo, the way the game has gone now, the way Scotland play, the way Ireland want to play, I think he can add so much to your overall attack, your cover around the field.
Is he in instead of Henderson? Henderson was Henderson was grand, right?
Yeah,
like no mistakes, but no sense of explosion the way when Henderson was at his very best. Breaking into the team early in his career. And maybe that's just because that's how life is. You get 80 caps and we're like, we know exactly what you can do. Ryan Baird has 10 caps, and it's like, Baird might be this explosive.
If you look at the enthusiasm, the energy, the small details that Ireland have become so good at, their clean out, their urgency to get to breakdowns, their support play and attack, all that kind of stuff would indicate that someone like Ryan Byrne can only add to that kind of stuff because he's so fit, he's so athletic. If you think then of the nitty-gritty, winning mauls, hard yards, experience, you're thinking, Ian Henderson can do really. So it depends what the detail when they break it down and the work rate and
there's a role for both of them in the World Cup squad for sure.
Of course, yeah. But I think Ryan Baird is someone that I'm a big fan of, and I think he's someone that can really add to that attack. But then if you're in Murrayfield in 2 weeks on Sunday and the weather is poor and it's wet and it's windy, that's not saying he can't be physical, but we probably need to see it, So I think it's worth taking a chance with him, and he potentially probably deserves a start.
In the second row?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the back row, Peter Marty comes straight back in and Conan back to the bench. Is that just...
You would think so. Again, it's a tough game. For the 4 or 5 players and the changes that were made, it's one of those ones where you're kind of banging your fist a little bit after, saying it's a shame it's not 20-25 point win, and the game opened up and it was lovely, scoring 3 tries at the end, and Italy were tough, but we got loads of touches of the ball. They got no time, no space. Like the impact tackles out of the Italians were smashing Irish players in the gain line, and that's why it's really beneficial to Ireland, because I think they, for the first time in this championship, they had to play with slow ball at times and behind the gain line, so that will be very beneficial to them. I thought they needed to kick better at times, out of hand, as I said, not just Ross Byrne, but tactically we could have added some more kicks in there. Tactical kicks, not just thumping it away for the sake of it.
Yeah. Just very briefly on this, because I don't want to labour too much, but we didn't go for points when we had a penalty right in front of the goals that would have taken it from 7 to 10 points. We went, kicked to the corner and lost the line out and just put ourselves under a bit of pressure. It strikes me that it's like Sexton sometimes just goes up and goes, I'll take the points. And we're like, oh, he never takes the points. But then actually he does sometimes. If he'd been captain, would he have done that? Because this is at the start of the second half. We've got the 4 tries bonus. There's just this is a captaincy question, really. James Ryan needs to learn these things. They were talking about it on ITV afterwards. Just take the points, spread the gap to 10.
Yeah, of course. When you see how the game unfolded and it's back to 7 points, back to 4 points. Yes, you're then saying but
in the moment though,
you go back to New Zealand. They're kicking to the corner when there's kickable penalties because they back themselves. And I think if you have,
there was no bonus points on offer against New Zealand though. You wanted to win that game and crush them, and like with Italy.
You have the bonus point, and it's a relevant point you make that they probably should have kicked for the points. Yeah, Ross Byrne has to kick because it's 24-20 on 63rd minute, and that's non-negotiable there.
Yeah.
But I think Paul O'Connell will be probably saying, well, why did you lose the line out?
Of course.
He'll be focused on who missed their lift, was the throw right or wrong. Yeah. So,
and also Kelleher now slightly ahead of Dan Sheehan.
They're two wonderful players.
Look, it's 1A and 1B, totally.
Yeah, I just think it's brilliant that Ronan Kelleher, and if you're talking about players who kind of stood out, like he could have got 3 or 4 turnovers in that game. He was so alert. He's just brilliant at the breakdown, and he runs so hard, and his scrummaging is brilliant as well. So it's incredible. 2 of those guys fit. Impact off the bench. If one of the others coming off the bench, it's brilliant, and I think it's brilliant to have him back and have him fit and well again.
Okay, all right. Have we time for one quick? France, what's the story? Is there like Scotland were good, right? But France's ill discipline allowed them back into the game with the red card, and then they just, I don't know. Roger's been talking about France kind of coming off a peak.
A little bit, maybe. I think Scotland were outstanding, and they played with great pace, tempo, the attack. France are very physical, and I still think they're laborious at times in what they do. They kick a lot. But, Scotland just held on to the ball so well. And if you build multi-phase against, it's always been the case. They're a very powerful side. You have to double up sometimes in the tackle when Willem says carrying and Aldred and Marchand and these guys, because they're very physical players. But Scotland did that. I think we should be more concerned about what Scotland are doing here. Obviously, because we played them next, they can take a lot. It was a brilliant performance from Scotland, and it was a brilliant match to watch.
Okay.
And if you consider Wales-England on Saturday was punishing to do it, England kicked the ball 38 times, Wales 34.
Yeah. Not a classic under the roof. Before we go, we should just mark the passing of Tom Tierney and obviously send our condolences to his family. You were a teammate, and it must have really devastated the squad, because this obviously, unfortunately, is going to be a familiar territory for you guys.
Yeah, it's just another shock, I think, with what happened, Tom. It's hard to believe when you're that young that can happen, and obviously after Axel a number of years ago as well, and it's just another hammer blow to people who are close and involved with Tom. And he was coaching that the day before in Munster on the field with the academy, and the one thing that everybody you hear saying now is how funny Tom was, how much of a character he was. I even listened to some of the English Ben Kay at the weekend from Tom's time at Leicester. He was a brilliant character. Every time you'd meet Tom, there's a little bit of a joke or fun. It's devastating, really, and it's such a shock, and it's hard to process it again. And obviously for Mary and the kids and his extended family, it's hard to comprehend what's happened again.
All right, we'll leave it there. And as I said, we send our condolences to the Tierney family and to you guys and all your teammates as well, and everybody who's come in contact with him. That is definitely the story that is emerging of Tom Tierney as a man. A reminder that we're brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day.